one number against another number, we can take inputs from the user, assign them to variables, and then compare those variables against each other using these decision structures. Now note that these Boolean expressions, greater than, less than, equal to, and the rest, they do apply to numbers and strings as well, but they have different meanings. We'll get to strings later on, but for now we are working with numbers. So let's begin. So if variable 1 is greater than variable 2, right? You do this. The same way we can have another variable 3 equals to 67. This can be anything coming from the user, right? And variable 4 is equals to 90. And then we can say is variable 3 greater than or equal to variable 4. So 3 is greater than or equal to 4, and 3. 1 is greater than 2. 1 is not greater than 2. Right. So I'm going to run this function again. I'm commenting all of this because, okay, just. And then I'm going to run this. So we see here that is the first variable greater than the second variable. 1 is greater than 0. So we'll see 1 is greater than 2. Variable 3 is 67. Variable 4 is 90. Then when we compare this, is variable 3 greater than or equal to 4? The answer is false. So we'd see 3 is not greater than or equal to 4. So let's take this into our function. Does anyone have any questions up until now? I mean, are we clear on how this if-else thing works?
Yes, sir. But
yes, sir.
One thing I'm kind of confused about is we are not using anything like, to submit all those lines. So is it just like that, or?
Come again. Yeah.
Unlike.
Okay, go on.
Okay, I said unlike JavaScript and co, that you can submit them with semicolon and co. So this one is kind of straight. So like that, the syntax are all, I don't know.
Yeah. So in Python, you can choose to terminate with semicolon, as you can see here, or you can choose to leave it. It doesn't really matter. The program would still run. So terminating your lines with the semicolon is a completely optional thing as far as Python is concerned. It's not like Java where you must. You don't have to. If you decide to, it's fine in Python. If you decide not to, it's also fine. Your program will run regardless. Is that clear enough?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
All right. So let's get back to our function. Where are they? Here, right here. So problem is sorry, what happened here? Oh, okay, sorry. All of this. Okay, sorry. I made a mistake. I should only uncomment this. Good. And then good. And this also. As well as this. So Now, if a user submits principal amount as 0, what should we do? Should we just say interest is 0, or should we tell the user that, hey, you passed in principal amount as 0? Therefore, we're not going to calculate it. Please put in something correct. Put in a correct amount, which is what your most of your websites will do, right? When you put in something invalid, they'll tell you, hey, you did something wrong. Correct it and we'll do what you want us to do, right? So let's begin to implement that in this, right? So we'll begin with if. Now, if principal amount is equal to 0, right? Now, we'll tell the user principal amount cannot be equal to 0, right? And then, now if we leave this function the way it is, it would still go ahead and calculate the interest. So to ensure that this function ends here and here only, it will not continue to run the other parts of the function, I would use the return keyword, right? So this means once the compiler or the computer sees return, every other thing after it is ignored. Method ends here, right? So again, like I said, if the user passes in principal amount equal to 0, we're going to tell them principal amount cannot be equal to 0, and we return, right? So if also the principal amount is less than 0, sorry, print principal amount is less than 0. Again, we are going to use the return keyword. Now notice also, I don't have to use semicolon. Sorry, I keep forgetting. It's better if you write Python without semicolon, but that doesn't mean your program will not run if you put it. So again, principal amount is less than 0. Now, some of you could be keen to observe that, why don't I say if principal amount is less than or equal to 0? I could do that. I could also say, but this would never work. This is another way of combining these two expressions into one. I would say if principal amount is less than or equal to 0. It's the same thing as the two put together. The only thing is I wanted my error message to really represent what was happening. But I can say principal amount must be or cannot be less than or equal to 0, right? And return. Good. So we'll get rid of these two. Now, for number of years also, remember we said that number of years cannot be 0, and you cannot be calculating interest for number of years, for a negative number of years. So again, we'll continue with if number of years is less than or equal to 0, we'll print cannot calculate compound interest for years less than for 0 or less number of years. Again, it's completely up to you, the error message you decide to return. So again, we'll return. So which means, what this means now is that for this function, if the user passes in principal amount less than or equal to 0, we would just print an error message and say, you know what, we're not going to continue. If he passes in 0 number of years, We would also not continue. Everything ends here. We would only run the compound interest if both principal amount and number of years is greater than 0. So let's take this function for a test drive. So I would begin by commenting this out, and sorry. Okay. Okay, I don't want to confuse anyone. Wait. Cool. Compound interest. I'm going to put in 1,000 minus 5. I'm going to put in what the hell happened? Sorry. Right. So let's take this for a step drive and see about that. Yeah. So, like we said, now if you look, sorry, I'll get rid of this so that what? Oh, yeah. I don't see any print statements other than the print statements I want. Oh, I thought I. Okay. So let's begin. The first one, everything is greater than 0, right? So it makes sense to continue calculating to calculate the compound interest because, I mean, 1,000 is a valid sum and 10 years is also a valid number of years for us. Calculate compound interest for a negative figure that causes this error message to be seen, right? Principal amount cannot be less than or equal to 0, right? And then notice here, we pass in a negative number of years and we get this error message. Cannot calculate compound interest for 0 or less number of years. And then for this also, you get the error message, cannot calculate compound interest for 0 or less number of years, right? So on your REPL.IT screen now, could we apply the same logic to this function? We don't want a user to be able to calculate simple interest if the principal amount is less than or equal to 0, or if number of years is less than or equal to 0. So just to warm your fingers up, fire up your REPL.IT, sign up with Google or whatever rocks your boat, and fire up these functions and implement these decision structures for calculate simple interest, and let me know what your results look like. Okay, you have 10 minutes.
I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, since we have calculated now the restrictions on principal less than 0, for instance, as a comment, in the same way, can we restrict the number of years, for instance,
yes,
to infinity?
Yes, yes. So let's assume that you should not be able to compound your money for more than a lifetime, right? Let's say the average
Yeah.
life expectancy is 100 years, if you live that long.
Yeah.
We could also say num of years is greater than or equal to 100. Right,
Yes.
print. You are probably dead by now. Right? And that's it. So let's take this for a test drive now. Let's say print calculate compound interest. And we say we want to invest 1 million or whatever, and say we want to invest it for 100 years, right? Now, fire this up and let's see. Yeah, we can't calculate compound interest for you because, I mean, if it's greater than 100, you would probably not be alive to spend the money. So, yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thanks.
Same way, we could say that you should not be able to invest more than 1 million. In that case, the condition would be if principal amount is greater than or equal to 1 million, right? And then that would be principal must be less than a million. Return. Good. So if we take that for a test drive, okay, this function would, let's just make sure this runs. And let's take this. And 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, right? And run. And then principal must be less than a million, right? Do we all understand?
Yes, sir. So, sorry, sir, please, I have one other question.
Go on.
All right. Although I'm kind of late for the class, so that's why I didn't really get much of all these things. So, but this DEF thing, is it something of a function or what?
Come again?
The DEF, like the def.
Oh.
Yeah, is it a function or what?
Yeah, probably. You were not here in the last class, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's it. I don't know if we want to recap. Okay, so when you are defining a function, you typically precede the function name with the def keyword, the name of the function, and the parameters for the function, if any, right? And then semicolon before you say that. Well, we can talk after the meeting or at a much later time. Let's not hold everyone back. But
All
yeah,
right. Thank you.
Yeah. So without much ado, let's implement all of this validation logic or all of these checks in calculate simple interests. You take this function, you can copy it. I don't mind. I can show you. But the important thing is we want to decide that we can't calculate interest if the principal is less than or equal to 0, if it is greater than or equal to 1 million, if number of years is less than or equal to 0, or if number of years is greater than or equal to 100. We will only calculate interest if all of these conditions evaluate to false. Right. So off you go. See you in 10 minutes. All right. I believe we should be rounding up if we're not done yet. That is, if we are not finished. Did anyone have any problems? No. No. Hello? Are we still here? I can't hear you.
Yes, we are here with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
please, sorry, sir. I have a question. Am I
Go on.
permitted to ask?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, while checking or typing mine on the web,
Yeah.
I first of all created the function, and
Yep.
then on top of the function, I was now trying to call the function a print statement. For example, when you go to
You can
simple
share your
interest.
screen. You can share your screen. Share your screen.
Okay. Let me share my screen. There's my web. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this is what I did. Just testing this. I did like this, and it gave me an error until I moved this down before it
Yeah.
could work. So
Okay.
is this how Python is, or it's
Yeah. Okay. So truth
for
is,
sharing?
you can't use a function before you declare it. I mean, you can't spend money that you don't have. You
Okay.
can't travel if you don't have an airplane ticket. So you basically must have declared it before you call it. That's how Python works.
That's very good to know. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. All right. Okay. So yes, did any of us have problems? I mean, are we done or we need more time?
Maybe some 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Interest.
Okay.